What's up, YouTube? In this video, I'm going to help you walk through how to pick either a new main or your first main ever. If I want to start off by saying that if you're playing Apex Legends solely for fun, this video is not for you. This video is also not for you if you only want to play the meta compositions. I am going to exclude a couple of legends in this that have better options, but by no means am I eliminating all the legends and only picking the meta, because you need to be thinking about this, especially in future seasons as the game changes slightly. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I go live on this channel almost daily. I hope you enjoy the video. All right, I've been thinking about how to make the best video for this for quite some time now, and the conclusion I've come to is that I have to use MS Paint to give you guys a nice visual representation as we're talking about this. So please bear with me as I show, obviously, that I'm in Paint on my screen. Again, I feel this is the best way that we're gonna have a conversation about this. So again, if you're playing for fun, disregard this video. This video is not for you. Play whatever you have fun with. It doesn't matter. If you're trying to play the meta composition, this video is probably not for you, because the meta composition is going to change depending on nerfs or what map we're on, or even the playstyles on your team, frankly. What this video is going to do is give you a reasonable idea of which legends you can play that will kind of naturally fit your playstyle. As your skills set grows, as your playstyle changes, you may even be able to change that legend's natural playstyle to be a little different and use it to your advantage if it's still fun for you. Everybody knows an aggressive Wattson or an aggressive Caustic or an aggressive Rampart. But naturally speaking, that's not necessarily the flow that those legends will have. So that's what we're going to cover in this. I've got a couple color breakdowns for you. I'm going to make it a little easier as I kind of highlight some of these legends as we're talking about it. So the first thing that I want you to think about is, what is your play style in combat when your team is around? Okay, I push a squad. I have my team with me. What role am I currently playing on that squad? Am I the guy that's pushing forward, being the aggressor, taking angles, typically more of that entry fragger role? If I am, I'm going to be best served with a movement legend of some sort. We're going to use this kind of a broad definition here, because certainly some movement legends are better than other. That's not what this is about. This is about which legends make good for those play styles. Okay, Mirage, Octane, Pathfinder, Wraith, Bangalore, Horizon, Fuse even has to be on the more aggressive spectrum. Well, Fuse, we're going to leave Fuse as flexible. Okay, Horizon. Loba, I consider more on the movement legend spectrum. Valkyrie, I consider more on the movement legend spectrum. Mirage, I don't consider a movement legend, but his skill set is naturally inclined to be in the enemy's face, or at least close enough to bamboozle the enemy, right? So Mirage, we're going to leave on this aggressive angle type legend here. Again, there's some flexibility in this. If we're talking about purely the meta, the best legends for this role is going to be a movement legend, but it doesn't mean that anything else is going to hurt your team as long as you can play them well. So disregard that. The next type of player that I'm considering here, your defensive / anchor. There's going to be a little bit of spillover in these categories, because I feel like certain legends can sort of fit multiple types of players pretty naturally. So I'll get to the flexible ones as soon as we go through the defensive anchor legends. Defensive anchor, I would consider, are the players that are not necessarily the first one in. They're kind of hanging back. They're putting pressure on the team, while their aggressive players maybe taking an angle or finishing off what damage they're doing, or they're kind of following the leader into battle per se. And I'm not talking about in-game lead. I'm talking about kind of the natural leader of that the engagement, right? You're the legend, you're the player that is making sure you're kind of holding down the fort, and sort of paying attention to what's going on your team. So Bloodhound, Gibraltar, Lifeline are great for that role. Caustic is also great for that role. Rampart also kind of can't run in on her own. Fuse rides more on the flexible spectrum, but I'm wanting to include him in this, and I will include him in flexible as well. Wattson, typically you don't want to run in on your own, right? Crypto, you don't want to run in on your own. Revenant, you don't want to run in on your own. Seer. Seer is one I would consider sort of like Fuse, flexible spectrum, but all right. If you're on that more defensive / anchor role on your team, any of the legends in blue will work pretty well for you. And then lastly, the thing that kind of separates and gives you some options here would be your flexible. So flexible, Bloodhound is flexible. Caustic is flexible because his gas is so effective. I would say Rampart's also possibly flexible now because she's pretty mobile. Fuse, I think you can stand to be a little bit more aggressive with Fuse. Seer, I consider flexible. Flexible to me means that I can fill the aggressive angle role if I have to, but you're not necessarily going to be the most amazing at that role, so you may want to not play it as fast as, say, a pure movement legend would, right? I may not want to get myself in as sticky of a situation as an Octane, a Pathfinder, or a Wraith, or whoever could, because they can't necessarily get out of it. But flexible legends still give you their skill set, their abilities still give you enough to put a lot of aggressive pressure on a team. So I would say if you're a green player, you want to be aggressive. You're not necessarily the most aggressive player, but you want to be pushing forward. You want to be making sure you're applying more pressure than just kind of waiting for your aggressive player to get a huge edge, right? You're still moving forward. You're still applying pressure. You're using your skill sets. You just may not be the first one into you may not be the first one into the room, but you're not going to be the last one into the room. That's kind of what I would say a flexible legend would be. Now, again, I want you to remember that this is not necessarily meta. This is just kind of what you would do. I'm going to walk through sort of how I feel about each legend just to kind of give everybody a run through of each particular legend. So if you're a Bloodhound, you have a little bit of flexibility specifically because of his scan and his ultimate. If you ultimate as Bloodhound, you're faster. Nobody can catch you. Nobody can catch you as an ultimate Bloodhound. So that gives you some movement ability in the sense that you're fast. But typically an aggressive Bloodhound, he's such a power player on that team, but he can fit the anchor as well, as long as you're close enough to be useful with your scans. Your Gibraltar and Lifeline, I think, has to be a very specific sort of player. Your Gibraltar and Lifeline have to be hyper aware of what's going on the squad. Potentially even Mirage falls into this category. If you're a character that is going to be the one doing a lot of the reviving on your team, you have to be sort of the babysitter, the caregiver of the squad. You have to be hyper aware of what situation everybody is in and not necessarily just blindly sending it. So if you're kind of the caregiver of the team, maybe you are worried about how many batteries and med kits and what sort of situation your team is in, you might want to consider Gibraltar, Lifeline, or Mirage. I feel like those are good legends for that. Pathfinder, Wraith, Octane, Loba and Valkyrie and even Bangalore, I would consider as you have a more independent mindset. I would caution you if you're one of the players that play a movement legend. I think that most players that play movement legends send it a little too hard. So if you feel like when I initially made my descriptions that you fit movement legends the best, I want you to question yourself on how hard you're W keying or rushing forward on the enemy squads. You don't want to make the mistake of being aggressive at the expense of going down first. It's very important that we tame our aggression to make it useful to the team, and we don't just over aggress and hope that it all works out, or that our team, our anchor team, or any other person is going to be able to come in there and save you and clean up the last guys because you cracked some. It's just not quite how it works. So please do be careful about your level of aggression. Caustic, Rampart, I consider those to be more of the Caustic, Rampart, and even Wattson. Those are more of on your defensive side. And as a defensive legend, you need to be thinking of how can I set up so that if my team needs to kind of take a step back and mend and heal or revive or battery, and we have to weather a storm, how can I set that up either while I'm approaching that fight, or how can I spot that needs to happen immediately and set that up so that we don't all die, right? So what that typically looks like is Caustic, Rampart, and Wattson is before you push a fight or as you're pushing a fight, you quickly set up some walls or some caustic traps or some fencing in a way that if you guys have to take a step back and regroup, you can do so because it's already pre-laid out. If you wait until the team is pushing against you, maybe one of your guys got downed or you guys got really screwed up, you got cracked. If you wait until that point, you're probably not going to have enough time if the team is aggressive. So don't wait to set anything up for that. You don't want to do that. Crypto, Revenant. Yeah, Crypto, Revenant are kind of weird legends. Let's get this out of the way, right? Nobody really enjoys Revenant because his ultimate kind of encourages people to be wild and just send fights that are stupid. It's like rolling the dice. It encourages people to make stupid decisions and stupid pushes that they wouldn't otherwise normally be able to make. But the fact of the matter is if you're playing Revenant, he's actually very useful. You just need to remember that just because you have that totem, don't use it as a free send. Don't use it as an excuse to push a squad that you wouldn't push otherwise. Use that totem to make smart pushes on squads you would push even if you didn't have a totem. Okay? The totem is just how you get extra damage into a situation that you would normally take anyway. If you're not taking that fight without your totem, that's probably the wrong fight. Okay? Crypto, if you like crypto, play crypto. But the one thing you want to keep in mind with crypto is start making sure that you're in and out of that drone in a heartbeat. Because if you're in that drone any longer than the blink of an eye, you're burning time. You are burning time. Burning time. The number one mistake I see of cryptos is that they run around in their drone like it's a fucking mini game. They're playing in their drone. They're not paying attention to their team. They're not helping their team, or they're trying to get it in the perfect place. Meanwhile, their team's losing the fight, and then there's no recovery from there, right? So make sure you learn to be efficient with your drone and as fast as possible. You don't want your drone to be something you have to think about. It's got to be instant decision making in that drone so that you're in and out as fast as possible and nobody even knows you touched your drone. Okay. Loba's in a great place now with her buff. I put her more on the the movement legend spectrum. She's kind of like a movement legend and support role at the same time now. Not necessarily as strong as, say, an Octane team-wise, right? Because she can't rotate the team. But she has the same... she has a sort of along the same lines, sort of along the same use case as your movement legend. She's great at taking angles, great at helping be a little aggressive. She can get herself out of situations with her bracelet as long as you have cover. And her market is just so useful for the team. If you like Loba and you have fun with Loba, know that your team is going to appreciate that you're Loba. They're going to have fun with you as Loba. The one thing I would say that you need to be cautious of as Loba is to make sure that you're using your market in a way that saves you time. So after you guys do your initial looting on drop, you want to make sure that you're using that market as often as possible to just drop on a new point of interest, put your market down, everybody grab their 2 items, and you leave. And that way your looting time is cut down and minimized, and you guys can carry on your rotations or your aggression and so forth, and it'll give you an edge on the opponents on the field. I think most people who have a Loba on their team still tend to loot even though they have a Loba because they get greedy. They see, oh, there's other items I could use. You just need to use her market as a time saver and don't use it as an excuse to take even longer in that POI than you normally would. Rampart, we covered Rampart. Horizon is a very cool one. She is sort of a movement legend, but you just have to be cautious that she can't get herself out of a lot of... she can't necessarily save herself from taking a bad angle. So while you should play aggressive as Horizon, you just have to keep in mind about what angles you can overexpose yourself on, per se. Because she can't necessarily get back to her squad very fast. So Horizon is just one you need to think a little bit more like you're not a movement legend. Even though you have some movement capability. And her ultimate is really strongest at getting the jump on a squad. So keep that in mind. I think too many Horizons use her ultimate in combat. And I think that's already too late because it's best when the enemy doesn't know it's coming. So just think about that as you're approaching fights as Horizon. Fuse. Fuse is good fun. Fuse is good fun. I enjoy playing Fuse. He's not necessarily strong. He's not necessarily horrible. You don't necessarily have to be an anchor, but you don't necessarily want to be super aggressive. I would kind of fit him in that in-between. That's why he's a flexible legend. Yeah, you just need to be thinking about, I can't be the first one in because I have no movement abilities, but I don't want to be the last one in because I'm very useful in the enemy's face. So just keep that in mind. Valkyrie. Think about Valkyrie the same as Horizon. You have movement abilities, but you're not necessarily going to be able to get yourself out of a bad angle. So think about what angle you take with caution. You don't want to be overexposing yourself because you can't lean back on your movement abilities to save you from that overexposure. Seer. Seer, if you want to be a good Seer, even though he's... If you want to be a good seer, I think you have to play more on the flexible side, meaning that you kind of have to be that in between. You don't want to be the first one in. You don't want to take angles because you don't have the movement abilities to save yourself. But you don't want to be the last one in because he's useful in combat. So think about him along the lines of, I gotta get in there, but not necessarily the first one in there. And a little bit of this is all going to depend on your team composition, right? If you guys want to build your composition on what's the best, you can kind of make sure that you have a player for at least every role, right? Your super supportive role. You want somebody that's super aggressive and taking angles, and then maybe you want like an in-between. That's probably not a bad idea. It's not necessarily the meta, but it's a good balance. You don't want to be all defensive legends. If you all go out there as Caustic, Rampart, Wattson, you're going to struggle to accomplish the goals that you need to accomplish in combat. And on the flip side of that, if you're all movement legends, you're also going to struggle to accomplish the goals you need to accomplish in combat. So just think about those things as you guys are picking your new main. I hope this video has helped you. Again, I go live almost every day on YouTube. If you guys have found use in this video, make sure you guys like, drop a subscribe, come hang out on our lives. I have Discord links below. I have everything you need below in the description. Thank you guys so much. I hope this video helps you out.